All right.
You guys ever seen like a plastic bag and it's just like floating around? You guys just look at it, it's like, you guys get distracted about it. Then it goes up, then you guys just don't look at it again. You guys also see a balloon. Where does it go? That's usually the one question. And it ends up in our oceans usually. Today I'll be revealing the causes and effects of water pollution in our oceans. As an oceanographer, Jacques V. Cousteau, he says that the sea is the universal sewer. I will be talking about the types of water pollution, and the many effects it causes. My first type of pollution I want to talk about is the plastic pollution. Plastic pollution, everyone knows about it. It involves, the actual definition is a constant buildup of plastic, trash, and debris in the environment. An example that shows the plastic pollution at work is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, located in the North Pacific subtropical gyre. A gyre is usually a area where an ocean, like the oceans constantly do a swerve, capturing everything in, nothing gets out of it, it always circles around, so constantly everything builds up. Alright. Right here is usually where the tropical gyre is at. The Pacific Garbage Patch is located right here. It is accumulated around 20 million. LA Times article has said that about 20 million tons of garbage is just floating around in the ocean. They say it's around the size of Texas. It's not actually, it's all dispersed. It's not actually all giant clump of island floating around. It's all dispersed. There's underwater, there could be like a motorcycle underwater getting pushed around. All this trash is caused by debris, urban runoff, plastic. It's one of the beginning problems of it. My second type of pollution is also noise pollution. Noise pollution is not as known as most people, but it's defined by preservearticles.com defines it as usually an undesired sound producing an auditory sensation considered being annoying also. This is an effect because most large ships, big submarines, sonar, all this causes a lot of major noise. The pollution is caused when high energy acoustic pulses are emitted they're usually around 140 decibels. These systems transmit pulses of sound for hundreds of miles. My third type of pollution is nutrient pollution. The North Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says nutrient pollution is produced where it's processed when an excess amount of nutrients, mainly nitrogen and phosphorus, are added to bodies of water and can act like fertilizers. This will increase the growth of algae, making algal blooms grow. According to the Department of Government, by nutrient pollution is the single largest pollution problem in the world actually. It comes from it's usually from sewage, from fertilizers, from farmlands. They will run off the water, they'll go underneath the groundwater, get processed through and get thrown into our oceans. These algal blooms deplete the water around them from oxygen, starving the water of oxygen, depletes the water from oxygen, causing it to not have any life left. It pretty much makes life unbearable for fish, so they can't breathe, so they move away. These are also called dead zone. Okay. Now that I have explained the types of water pollutions and the causes, I'll explain about the effects of it. In plastic pollution has dangerous effects on our marine life. According to researchers at the Algalita Marine Research Foundation, it has impacted at least 267 species worldwide, including 86% of all sea turtles, 44% of all seabirds, and 43% of all marine mammal species. The impact includes an example of this was a whale was beached onto the sea. Autopsies saw the inside of it, and there was a pair of pants, a golf ball, more than 20 plastic bags, a small towel, duct tape, and surgical gloves. All of these get swallowed up by the whale. Since it's eating, it doesn't know what it's eating, it's just eating krill, so it just opens its mouth, swallows everything in, and that's how polluted our water is with it. The effects of noise pollution is defined. Although this is just noise, it still affects the environment. Sound is a way for marine mammals to see. The marine mammals use a type of biosonar in order to communicate with each other. Large ships, military sonar, they emit their own sonar, so it creates like a disturbance in them. It can cause an auditory dysfunction. It can make them deaf, cause hemorrhaging. Since marine mammals use sonar to detect their food, communicate, even mate, and also find their navigation, this distorts them, making them either get beached into shores, they starve to death, they get thrown out of their migration. Alright. The noise pollution is caused by the different types of sound, which is measured in decibels. Seismic testing, like air gun array, is 250 decibels. Tug barge is 175 decibels. Mid frequency military sonar is at 225, and large tankers are at around 175. A decibel for a whale to distort them is at around 125. For humans, it reaches around 150. So sometimes if you hear like an air gun fire and you're really close to it, you're gonna like have constant ringing around you. My third effect is the nutrient pollution. As I explained earlier, that when there is an increase of algal blooms, oxygen is depleted, and sometimes there is none, thus it creates a dead zone. One effect of nutrient pollution is the dead zone, where there is little oxygen. Most of these are dead zones actually. The red indicates already there's pretty much fish don't go there because they can't really breathe. The yellow represents areas to be concerned. As you can see over here, more of an Alabama, Oklahoma area, it's dead for a while, and then once you reach into the actual ocean, you'll start being able to see fish again. Alright, and now that I have explained to you the causes and effects, throughout this speech I have revealed the causes and effects of water pollution and in our marine environment. I discussed the plastic pollution, nutrient pollution, and noise pollution. And thank you.
Oh, Nicole, you were gonna do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Alright, so the overall idea of the speech was that you were going to explain the causes and effects of pollution. Two things I think you did well were that it seemed like for the definitions you knew what you were talking about, especially gyre, that one stood out to me. And your transitions were clear. You told us exactly when you were going to talk about each pollution type. Two things that could be improved upon were that I think you could be a bit more practiced instead of reading from the cards the whole time. And I don't know if it's just me, but at the end of towards the end of your speech, the organization seemed a little bit dodgy. I felt like you started talking about noise pollution, and then you went to nutrition pollution, and then you went back to noise pollution. So that was a little confusing. I liked the visual aids. You seemed to know what you were talking about for the most part on all of them, and they were really helpful showing us where the gyre would be or the dead zones. And as far as the overall presentation, I feel that it was very informative. It just could have been a bit more well practiced.
Okay. Yeah, I think the practice thing is kind of obvious, that you're uncertain as to what it is you're saying. Sometimes you have to hesitate as you're looking at your notes. You're doing a lot of reading. This should be old hat to you by the time you're presenting it in front of the audience instead of something that's fresh. And it really just feels like you're going through it for the first or second time instead of something that I know this backwards and forwards. I'm just going to tell you about it right here and look at you and discuss those kinds of issues. You're focused so much on what you've got on the notes that you forget to connect with the audience. So I think that is a problem. Now, the delivery issues are the least important thing for this particular assignment, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be addressed. So I just want you to keep that in mind. The speech itself, I think you've got a recognition of the mechanics that you need to go through. I can see, I need to have a purpose statement. I need to have a preview, Gesundheit. I need to signpost as I'm going through the body of the speech. So all of those things. It's like all learning, you go through stages where you remember learning how to drive a car? Does everybody remember, those of you when you first,
Yes.
and it's kind of mechanical that you have to, okay, I got to start the car,
That's right.
hands on the wheel, look in the mirror. And when I learned to drive, they gave us the SMOG acronym. Did you guys ever get that one? Signal, mirror, over your shoulder, go when safe, that sort of thing. And you would just run through it because you go, signal, mirror, over your shoulder. And that's kind of what you're doing. I can see that you are going through the mechanical things, but it's not flowing very smoothly. It's like you're in the early stage. So you're doing the right things, but they are not coming across very fluidly. So my criticism isn't that you haven't got the basics. You've got the basics. It's that you haven't mastered them yet, and you need to do that. You need to get to the point where you're just going through this, and it's a natural thing as opposed to I have to remind myself of what I'm doing next on each of those points. The transitions between the points are a good example of that. It's just very obvious. I'm now going to talk about this. I'm now going to talk about this. You know that you have to give us a signpost, but it's so obvious that you know that you have to give us a signpost that that's what you do, is you just give us the signpost instead of giving us some transition, Here's a simple example. Now that you have a pretty good understanding of that Great Pacific trash patch out there, that's not the only kind of pollution that we have to worry about. There's also a kind of pollution that's invisible to most human beings, and that's noise pollution. And that would be an example of a transition phrase that gets us from one idea to the next, but doesn't just say, here we are, and kind of throw it in our face. So you need to do a little bit better on that. Your visuals, I like the visuals. I think they work pretty well. They explain some information. They show us where it is you're talking about, like on the last one about the fishing areas. I thought that was pretty good. Your presentation of the visuals is problematic because basically you start giving your speech to the visual while you're talking. You're not talking to the audience anymore. You're turning around and you're basically using the visual as your notes, and let me see here, and you're giving your speech up there, and you need to be talking to us. The visual is supposed to be backing you up. It shouldn't become the focus of your attention during the presentation. You probably noticed that you went over time. 2.5 minutes over time. Yeah, this is another example of why we know that you need more rehearsal. Okay, thank you.